Welcome to the Apartment Guys, where we dive deep into all things multifamily investing. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and empower real estate investors to reach their highest potential. Each week, host Tate Seamer interviews high-level guests from all over the industry who are sure to bring valuable, actionable ideas that will propel your career to the next level. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned investor, you are in the right place. And now your host, the Apartment Guy, Tate Seamer.
Welcome, everybody, back. Another episode of the Apartment Guys coming at you right now. And I'm joined by my friends, Nick, Earls, and Eric DiNicola. Am I saying that right, Eric?
Close enough. Yeah.
Yeah. You can visualize it from the way I said it, right?
Yes.
DiNicola.
There you go.
Okay. That was better. Okay, perfect. And I'm really excited to talk to Nick and Eric today, and you'll see why in a minute. We're going to talk about something we've never talked about on the podcast before, and something that's really important right now. So, but Nick and Eric are full-time real estate investors, developers, and founders of Winterspring Capital, which is a private equity firm based out of Boston, Mass. And since starting their company, Nick and Eric have owned and developed over 56 million in multifamily assets, with an additional 40 million of currently ongoing developments in the pipeline. So almost 100 million in assets are coming up on that. Nick and Eric focus on several different types of multifamily investments, from value add 100+ unit complexes that they syndicate to their investor base, and also affordable housing development and luxury multifamily condos. So you guys are working on a lot of different types of project, primarily in the Massachusetts area, from what we were talking about before. So guys, welcome to the show. I'm really glad to have you.
Thanks for having us on.
You betcha. You betcha. So love to know a little bit about, your background, guys, and kind of how you connected and how, you got started in your path to success and Winterspring and all that good stuff.
Yeah, Eric and I have actually been friends since we were kids, known each other almost 20 years now. Went to the same high school, played football together. Our high school had a powerlifting team. We were both on that. Played a lot of video games, World of Warcraft, lots of team-oriented stuff. So we always kind of had that sort of rebellious streak, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs have. We didn't picture ourselves working under someone. We wanted to kind of do our own thing, build our own future. And we thought, hey, we're best friends. Why don't we start a company someday? And at the time we were just kids. But we kind of kept that idea. We went our separate ways in college. We had this idea, let's start a company. And I got my real estate license in 2012, and I said to Eric, "Hey, I think this might be the way that we could start our own pathway and not work for other people. We could buy rental properties and we could fix them up." And so we had this idea. We'd save up some money. I was working as an agent. He was working in the public and private equity markets at the time in New Jersey, and we were saving up money for a couple of years, probably about 4 years, I think. And at the time, I saw an opportunity actually in condominium development, which was a little different from our original plan of buying rental properties, because we're based out of Boston, where we grew up. We're very familiar with the market. And Boston's really undergone a crazy transformation over the past 10, 15 years. Primarily due to the life sciences industry, biotech companies, medical companies, Moderna, one of the vaccine producers, a lot of the big names in the biotech and life sciences industry headquartered or have locations in Boston. So you've seen a tremendous explosion of population in the Boston area. Massachusetts as an overall market, a lot of people see those graphs where they see, it's an outflow market. There are people moving out of Massachusetts. Not true of the greater Boston area. It's actually had crazy population growth. And so there's been a extreme supply shortage, rather, because of outdated zoning codes. And a lot of these people who work in these life science industry jobs they want to have luxury rentals because they have, a very high paying salary. But a lot of them want to be homeowners as well. So the way we got started actually was in condominium development, selling to a lot of these high earning people moving into the city. And what we would do is we'd go and we'd find, a smaller property that we could, maybe it's a 2-family and we could add a unit. That was our first project where we took a kind of a dilapidated small 2-family and we fixed it up, turn it into 3 units. And now we've worked up to the point where we mostly do ground up. We've got a 32 unit luxury development, very similar condominium project ongoing right now. But that's kind of been our bread and butter, has been condominium development. And we've segued it, as you said in the intro, into doing rental development and affordable housing development. But that's where we got started.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Eric, you want to add any color to that story? You agree with everything Nick said?
He hit the nail on the head pretty much with everything. I mean, we, it wasn't our initial plan that we were going to, build condos, sell them to homeowners. We figured, okay, we'll just accumulate rental properties. And by the time we retire, we'll, have a lot of assets and it will have been worth it. Mm-hmm. But we saw this kind of a lot of the metrics and stats that Nick was talking about in the city of Boston. We saw this kind of, I guess you'd say almost like a discrepancy between rental rates and condo prices and demand. And doesn't mean rental rates are low. They're very high in Boston, but there's a big demand for that home ownership. Yeah. People still want to live in Boston. So it's kind of been a niche thing where we figured out, okay, we can be nimble, we can be involved in all parts of real estate, but right now we have an opportunity where we've scaled the barriers that a lot of people had trouble doing and sort of getting over that initial hump, where we can go in, turn something into multiple condos, sell them individually to homeowners who want to live in the area, want to move their family into the area, exit the project, then roll it into 2 more. And that was kind of our initial, plan once we figured out this condo plan. Now we've gotten to the point where, we have investors involved. We're doing more than one project at a time. We're able to kind of diversify a bit more so we don't have to come up with all the cash ourselves and continue to roll in anything we make from prior projects. We can kind of diversify a bit. We purchase some rentals and like I said, we have investors who invest alongside us. So we have a very different view than when we started, because now, we're helping other people make money. We're protecting their money. And we're also doing more things at the same time, simultaneously.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys about so you're doing new build condo developments primarily now. Have you done much in the way of existing? I know you did your 2 unit that you converted to a 3 unit. Have you done much more with like larger scale conversions of existing buildings?
We've looked at them.
Yeah.
We were actually looking at a couple different conversions, and we're still very interested in office conversions as a potential office to apartments. But generally speaking, what we found for the type of developments we're doing, where it's luxury condominiums or luxury rental buildings, class A, you want new construction most of the time. It's simpler to do. You'll find that the construction cost is not as much lower as you would expect it to be working with an existing shell.
Yeah. I know. Construction costs right now are such a volatile variable in all of this. Is that affecting you guys much? Cost of lumber, and I mean, it's got to be, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, lumber, steel. We kind of the timing of all this, it was worked out sort of well for us, just based on the stages we were at and the contracts we already had signed and the orders that we had in place. So we had, a lot of materials ready for one or two of our projects when prices started to go a little nuts a year or two ago. And now we're kind of getting hit with it again as we're at that stage in another project where we're bringing in lumber. We just finished the steel. So what we've done is we just go in saying, okay, look, you have to have a decent contingency on this construction budget. And we're following, we're actually with one of our projects, we're placing lumber orders in sort of pieces because the lumber suppliers are pricing it like on the fly based on what they're paying. So if we get it all at once and then all of a sudden 2 weeks later, the price of lumber drops, I mean, we probably cost ourselves a lot of money. So this strategy has been working really well for us the last few months. We got maybe 25% of our lumber delivered for one of these jobs I'm talking about. And price went down pretty heavily recently compared to what it was, say, like a month or two ago. And we just kind of timed that well with this. But yeah, it's can affect us in the opposite way if we make the bet in the wrong direction. But we've been able to weather it. And you just kind of have to plan ahead and realize, okay, certain material costs, and not just material costs, but lead times. So even for things like appliances, right. We don't really need those till say June for a project we're working on right now. So maybe we wouldn't even order them till like April normally, but now we've already ordered them because we know it could take 18, 19, 20 weeks to get some of these things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. So this has got to be luxury residential, has to be highest and best use for these parcels. Are these infill parcels mostly?
Yeah.
Infill projects. And how are you sourcing the land essentially?
Combination of brokers and off-market outreach. So we have a deal actually that we entitled and we sold to another developer just because we had added so much value just in entitling it.
Right. We've done
we
that.
We just sold that last month. Oh, you've done that as well. Yeah.
We've done 3 or 4 land entitlements, not the scale that you guys have done, I don't think, but some 20 unit type stuff.
Nice. Yeah. Well, that's not too far off the scale what we're doing. It's very similar. And that's obviously a great, you don't even have to put a shovel in the ground. You're making some profit. So that's one of our specialties has been land entitlement in Boston, just because of the barriers to entry are so high. But that deal where we entitled it, we picked it up off market. We actually tied it up with entitlement contingency. So we didn't close until we already had approvals in place. And then 2 weeks later, we went ahead and sold it to another developer. So we had minimal risk, really great return on that. So that was an off-market pickup where we just basically studied different zones in the city of Boston that we thought would be advantageous. Hey, if we could get one of these property owners to agree to sell their property to us, we know we could get something approved here. We might need special permission. We might need a zoning approval, but just by the letter of the law of the zoning code, they allow for pretty dense buildings here. So a lot of our off-market campaigns are kind of targeted like that. We go after areas where we think they're pro-development, and then brokers are huge as well, especially in the development world. Our 32 unit project that we're doing right now, it's in a neighborhood of Boston called Brighton. That was sent to us by a broker, not on the open market. The brokers will kind of have pocket listings that they'll send to people on their list. And we try to get on as many of those lists as possible. And we'll reach out to new brokers. We'll send like a high quality video of a project we've recently done to kind of prove, hey, we're here, we're real developers, take us seriously. And they'll look at it and they'll say, hey, these are guys I might want to send some deals to. And we've had a lot of success with that system recently.
That's excellent. I was right before you said that about your video, I was going to ask you if you had any tricks or secrets into getting in with brokers, and wow, you served it right up. That's an awesome idea. We have a credibility kit. That's a 6-page PDF. And we also have it in physical print form that, outlines our company and what we look for and what our current portfolio is, and et cetera, et cetera. But I love the idea of a credibility video. I think that's fantastic. Like a sizzle reel almost about you guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Awesome. So I could ask you guys a ton more about the infill stuff because I love it. It's not really what we're doing right now. I mentioned we've done land entitlement. We actually own a small development lot right now that we're under contract to sell that we didn't even entitle. We just kind of flipped with a concept. We had an architect draw up a concept that basically fit into the current zoning requirements, and then sold the concept and the land together.
Nice.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So, but I hesitate to even bring it up on the Apartment Guys podcast because we're really like, I'm a big believer in staying in your lane essentially, and you guys have done a great job at developing, a couple different lanes. We're still in the stage of our growth that we're really growing our balance sheet and very intentional about doing it with larger scale multifamily in Columbus, Ohio, and
that's great.
Oklahoma City. Those are our two main markets. So land entitlement, just real quick for listeners, in case you're wondering, it's a process where you basically either buy or put under contract a piece of land that either currently has zoning that allows for a much higher and better use than what it's currently being zoned for, or used for rather, or you tie it up and you go and get the zoning change that you want and need to develop a project there that works for that works for the numbers and the underwriting and everything else. And what we've done, and this is what Nick and Eric just did, is tied up a piece of land. Did you guys buy it? Or put it under contract, or what did you do with that one?
We had it under contract.
Yeah.
And
so you put it under contract and assign the contract basically. And what did you do in the way of formal entitlements? Did you do a zone change?
Yeah, we got, we call them variances in Boston. Yep. It's a similar thing everywhere. And it was actually a very unique zone where it was all houses, but residential was a forbidden use. It was just they were grandfathered in, or as an old code, but all the dimensional requirements, setbacks, heights, everything were really loose and favorable. So we had this thing where we're putting, double digit units on the street that forbids residential. And that was the only variance we needed actually was use, because everything dimensionally, which we rarely see, it's usually residence is fine. It's just the dimensional requirements. You go way overboard. So that's why it was such an attractive play to us. And it was interesting. We didn't actually even assign the contract. We closed on it, owned it for 2 weeks, which cost us a bit, of course, in closing costs that we would have liked to avoid. But that was really the only way to make it happen. We actually owned it for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Interesting way.
And you just kind of do whatever you need to do to make it happen with the buyer and whatnot. Yeah.
Because we had the buyer lined up for about 2 months prior to then closing with the owners. And we had a whole long contingency with them, as Nick said. They were homeowners. They wanted to find a new house. There was a lot of components to it, and we just kind of made everything work for everyone. And they won big time, that's for sure. And we had a nice win too.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So switching gears, I teased a little bit at the outset of the episode that we were going to talk about something we've never talked about on the podcast before, and I'm excited to talk about it. And that's affordable housing. And as all of us know, in most of the primary markets and the secondary markets and a lot of tertiary markets, there's just such a massive supply and demand issue in this country right now. And you can point to a lot of different things. The fact that we slowed down or stopped building essentially after the last crash for a number of years. You can point to population shifts, like people moving in from coastal areas to the Floridas and Texases and the North Carolina and those South Carolina, the Southeast, Texas, Florida, phenomenon that's going on, people moving out of California. So in Utah, it's like ridiculous. We're the second or close to the first fastest growing market by percentage in the country. next to Boise, which is up the road from us. And all of us here, I've been in brainstorm sessions about affordable housing and how to solve this crisis with lots of very smart people that have done a lot of real estate development. And I haven't heard a really great solution yet at all to this. So I really am eager to hear what you guys have done and what you're doing and kind of how you're doing it to address this problem. And I know Boston's a huge, like you know, you guys have already talked about the Boston market and the supply and demand issue there, and it is as hot as can be. So, so how are you guys addressing that?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of as you alluded to, there's no one solution. There's a lot of different proposals of different ways we can try to solve this problem. So a lot of people are familiar with low-income housing tax credits. We're not doing, first of all, we're new to affordable housing as well. It's our first project we're doing. We're not doing a LIHTC project. We are doing a fully subsidized project by the city of Boston, where they'll own parcels of land and they'll have money, you know, tax funded money, taxpayer funded money that they'll put aside for affordable housing development. And they'll have parcels of land that the city owns for whatever reason. You know, people didn't pay their property taxes, or they just own it since way back when. And they'll periodically put out these requests for proposal to developers where they say, hey, we have this plot of land. Come to us with your idea. What can you do here in terms of affordable housing? Or maybe they say, hey, here's our preliminary idea, work off this. It's different from request to request, but the one that we, and it's a smaller job just because we're just kind of dipping our feet in the water. It's our first one. It's only 7 units. But they had a request for proposal that they put out, and they had these plans already kind of roughly sketched out. And we kind of assembled a team, and there's a lot of different things that they wanted to see. They want to see local people. They want to see a diverse team, just a bunch of different requirements. And so we submitted and we said, it'll cost us this much. This is our team. And other people also submitted. And ultimately, we were the ones who were chosen for this particular development. And they'll have, you know, requests put out every few months. So that's one particular way that the affordable housing, you know, problem can be dealt with. As you said, I don't think it's a perfect solution, and I don't think it can solve the problem in and of itself, but there are some municipalities, Boston being one of them, that have, you know, specifically set up programs like this where they'll fund it entirely. And
when you say fund it, are they initially, is this where they're issuing a construction loan, or you know, are they financing it, or they're actually like full on paying for these developments?
It's essentially they fund the difference. So,
okay,
you know, we'll still get a construction loan. But say these 7 units, it's across multiple sites, couple home ownership, a few home ownership, then a single rental make up this 7. So say it costs us, you know, 2.5 to 3 million to build. You can only sell the units for, and the city deals with that process for you since it's a city project. You can only sell them for maximum price based on the local median income. Mm-hmm. So that you spend, you know, 3 million to build, that's what your construction loan would be.
Yeah.
You're not going to get 3 million in sales from those. So say you end up getting, you know, close to 2 million, they subsidize that difference. Yeah. So you would actually lose money on this type of project if you could only sell it at those rates on the open market. So from the bank's perspective, they're still getting paid on their loan. It's okay. And a lot of banks that we deal with and local banks, they like to be involved with these types of projects as part of, you know, community outreach and sort of a community, you know, benefit thing. And so, yeah, it's just that difference, whatever the difference for you to sell them at versus what it costs you to build, since that will be a negative number, they subsidize that difference. So that's why when Nick's talking about, you know, they chose us,
Yeah.
We must have just presented in such a way. They don't say who can do it the cheapest, but that's obviously a major factor. Who can build what we want here with sort of the least subsidy, but also meeting all these other requirements.
Okay, I got it. So where do you guys make your margin in that scenario? In other words, if they're subsidizing the gap between your cost to build and your sales cost, is the margin in the sales cost? Where is it at that point?
It's a developer fee.
Developer fee, yeah. Got
Yeah,
it.
so that's paid out over the course of the project as you take on draws.
Yeah. Okay. And so how competitive are the RFPs? How that process? Are you guys up against a lot of people?
I think they're competitive, but I think one of the things that drew us to this is the barriers to entry. You know, you have to work with the city, you have to know the architect that works with the city, you have to assemble the the diverse team. There's just kind of a lot of pomp and circumstance almost to it that probably like a developer who's been doing market rate developments might not want to deal with or is intimidated by. And it's just kind of I don't know, dealing with city officials and all that. It's almost like a different skill set than what you're used to just being a developer normally. So we saw that as, hey, we don't mind doing that. And we kind of want to get our foot in the door because as you spoke about when you were introing this topic, this problem's only getting worse. And there's not too many solutions on the table. So we kind of want to position ourselves as being, one of the people developing affordable housing because we don't see, the need for that slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah. And like you say, you get your foot in the door with this project. Is this going to open up like the likelihood of you guys getting awarded more jobs, more RFPs in the future?
I would think so. Yeah. It hasn't been stated exactly, but, we'll hear, the different groups and associations as part of the city that we work with, as well as people on our team, like the architect who kind of helped guide us along when we first found this project. It seems they all will mention things. Oh yeah, they did great work. I know the city loved working with them, talking about, other developers. And then all of a sudden we see, oh, this is a 250 unit affordable housing development. And they say, oh yeah, we've worked with them before. So it definitely seems that way. And that was kind of one of our goals too, that we can eventually help develop much larger, properties.
Okay. So taking this a little bit further, like down the road a little bit for you guys as a company, and especially as Winter, kind of starting to integrate Winterspring into the conversation here. Is there an end game that with the development that kind of flips into some of Winterspring's stuff? Like, in other words, maybe building like build to rent type stuff, which is obviously huge in some parts of the country. Do you guys have that on your radar at all? Or how do you see expansion going for you?
Yeah, we're currently in the middle of getting some permitted for larger apartment development. So that's, I would say, is our main focus, is building something that maybe we'll hold on to for 5 years, maybe 10 years, depends on the nature of the deal. But that's what our investors are interested in. We've got equity groups we have contacts with, and that's what a lot of them are interested in, is ground up multifamily rental. We do the condos, which are a little more niche. Takes a bit of a learning curve for some investors, but investors are very bullish in general, the ones that we've encountered in this space, on ground up apartment development. So we're very focused on that. And we should have it's a little early right now, but we'll have some things to announce in that space soon.
Cool. Inside or in your market, in the Massachusetts market?
Eastern Massachusetts. Yep.
Oh, that's exciting, guys. Awesome. Basically, I'm not going to pry too much, but bigger scale, bigger unit count type stuff. Are you talking class A, or like more affordable housing type? project.
Yeah, luxury class A rental sort of thing. Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, that product should just crush it in the current environment, the current economic environment. So, once again, kind of big picture, zooming out, like 3-year vision, 30,000 foot view. What do you guys want to have happen here, and what do you want to see created ultimately, moving forward?
Our goal during these next 3 years, we kind of really have like a 5-year goal, but we continue to acquire our own rental properties, sort of simultaneous to doing this development. But what Nick just talked about, those larger, and we're talking, high double digits into the triple digit size apartment buildings.
Mm-hmm.
We want to have, by the end of this year, our goal is to have one closed, be under contract with another. And then at the end of the 5-year period, we want to have been in and out of at least 2, whether that means we entitled and sold the entitlement. We built, stabilized, and sold after 2 years. Either one of those options, and then have one that we're holding on to. So really 3 years, we plan to be involved one way or the other with probably close to 3 or 4 large apartment developments from some form of entitlement all the way to full stabilization.
Yeah. Awesome stuff, guys. That's a killer vision. I love that you guys have your 5-year goal vision set. That's to me, that's a step that so many people kind of overlook, or they sit in a webinar or a seminar and they set a few goals and they write them down, and then they don't really revisit them, or they don't stay like powerfully in touch with them. And we just read the book and implemented the vivid vision process, which I highly recommend the book to, and I've mentioned it before on the show. But doing that 3-year vision process for us was extremely powerful, and really has shaped what we're doing moving forward. So good on you guys for having that all developed. That's great.
Yeah, and I should say, I mean, it was a learning experience because we've been in business since 2015, and I think the people you just described who write down some goals and then never look at them again, that was us maybe in the first 3 years of our business. It was just kind of, we're ambitious and smart guys, so we had a lot of success, but it could have been a lot more organized. And we're only now really starting to benefit from systemization, clear goals, and not just us, but also for our employees as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's something, Tate. Nick hit it, hit the nail on the head, that we had to also become very open-minded about learning more and realizing, okay, this is what we're doing. Okay, we think it's working, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Maybe we can systematize something to fit our sort of style, but okay, we see this guy over here doing this. We can do that. What's he doing? How's he doing it? And really be is open-minded to learning. And not that we were closed-minded. We were always kind of curious, trying to learn, since we were kids in high school. But I think maybe early on a little stubborn, or maybe just didn't really realize how important that was in building your network and taking in information from all different types of people who you kind of work with in the industry, getting recommendations to look at a new deal. And even as Nick said, maybe 20 minutes ago or so, the deal inflow and just having a network of brokers. Like early on, we were just looking on the market, the multiple listing service. Now it's like most of our stuff comes off market, and we had to kind of build that up organically, but it was about just being open-minded, willing to learn and keep improving the systems to kind of get to this point. And we could keep improving. We still have a long way to go. But I think what Nick said is very true. We had to really systematize everything. We have KPIs, so we can really analyze where we're at, what needs to improve, and how to make some of those goals happen in a very systematized fashion.
Yeah. When did you guys take on your first employees as a duo?
We kind of have a junior partner who we hired under a salary, another friend of ours. That was that 2018 or 2019? 2018, 19. I think. 19.
Yeah.
So a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
and then quickly have hired a couple other people. We have a virtual assistant who is really good, really helpful. Definitely recommend virtual assistants to anyone in this field. We've got a guy who does our graphics, and we have a woman who handles our social media accounts like LinkedIn, Instagram, all that.
Are those both VAs? The graphics and social media?
No,
Okay.
they could be.
Yeah.
One's just a kind of a freelance graphics guy who works for us part-time. Anytime we'll need say we need a new, slide deck on a new offering we're doing, he'll whip that up for us. Just there's always need for new graphics. It's another thing that I had to learn the hard way, because at the beginning we didn't have a logo, we didn't have anything, and now we've kind of leaned in the other direction where, people want to see a professional company that looks like it's investing into its materials and it has kind of infrastructure underneath it. They don't want to see just some logo you downloaded off Google. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. We've got a full-time graphics VA on retainer that just he does unlimited work for us on a monthly retainer basis, and he's fantastic. And we use the heck out of him. So and if any listeners ever want to see any of our printed materials, you can always email me, tate@glequitygroup.com. I'm happy to send you our credibility kit. Guys, how can listeners reach you and see what you're all about?
Yeah, we have a website, winterspringcapital.com. We have a couple different ebooks and investor guides on there. I wrote one, Millions Through Multifamily Development. It's all about the condo development strategy. If you were interested in that niche, you can get it at winterspringcapital.com/development-book. We're pretty active on Instagram at Winterspring Capital. And then Eric and I, just our names, Nicholas Earls, Eric DiNicola. We're on LinkedIn as well. Yeah.
There you go, guys. Winterspringcapital.com and Instagram at Winterspring Capital, and then Nick Earls and Eric DiNicola. That's DiNicola on Eric. So just kind of round this out. I want to just hit on the affordable housing thing one more time for listeners that are, inspired by this vision. Do you see in Boston, I see where you're getting, the single family units essentially subsidized, right? Like you're building to sell those to owners that are going to owner occupy. Do you see projects or movement towards projects that are rental type affordable housing solutions?
Yeah, and it's the same premise. The same agency deals with home ownership on a area median income basis as they do with rentals. So when they say, okay, this duplex, there's 2 units that are going to be home ownership, they might sell for 500, 600 grand on the open market. You can only charge 247,000 for an owner. It's the same principle for rentals. So they say, okay, they have some formula where they figure out what's the average rent here. If it's $2,500, maybe if that person falls in the 80 or 100% area median income, there's a whole chart, which a lot of cities have, a lot of municipalities. They might say, okay, the maximum you can rent this unit for is $1,700, something like that. So it would be a lesser amount.
And then the difference would be subsidized?
No, it maybe with the construction.
The construction would be subsidized.
Yeah, but if you own an income restricted unit that you're renting, which there are some of those scenarios, you simply can't rent it for more than that, or you will violate your, I believe it's like a 30-50 year agreement with the city.
All right. So
I would say
like
there's, sorry to interrupt you.
No,
I just
go for
wanted
it.
to add something. There's more funds available, in general for rentals, affordable rentals, than home ownership actually.
Oh, okay. Good to know. And are they typically local municipalities or states or federal? What are you seeing?
I think the biggest, way that low-income housing development is funded is through the low-income housing tax credits. Yeah. Still the major source of funding. So the way that works is you propose a development that meets these certain requirements of area median income, and you have to get approved by the government, and say, okay, that we're going to award you these credits if you build it as is, and you'll have to sell those credits to an investor who will pay, a certain amount. Say you had a credit for $100, he might pay you $90 for that credit. So he'll become one of the main owners of the property. But before getting that tax credit investor involved, it could be very similar to a normal development where you'll have equity investors as well involved with the entitlement and bringing it up to permitting. So we haven't done one of those projects yet, but it's definitely on the horizon. That's kind of one of the reasons, I was saying, we were trying to get our foot in the door and get acclimated into this world. So I don't think the low-income housing tax credit program in and of itself is going to be sufficient in light of, how ridiculous housing costs have become in the past 10 years. So maybe something new will come out, and then, new proposals by the federal or state governments. We'll have to keep our eyes peeled.
Yeah. So, listeners, get familiar with your state and your municipality and what tax credits are available, what subsidies are available for this sort of thing. And then start calling brokers and talking to brokers about projects that they know of, that they've done, just getting out there, getting conversations started about this, and, do really follow in the footsteps of Nick and Eric, where they've kind of systematically, step by step, work their way into being really well poised to take on these bigger projects. And you guys are building your resume and your experience and everything else, and balance sheet, and that's fantastic. Congratulations. I think it's really cool that you guys are doing it as buddies, that high school buddies. You went to high school together. My business partner, Carl York, he and I have known each other for 22 years and have worked together through that whole period of time in different businesses, and originally photographers, but we've tried to, we've done a lot of different real estate things. And it's really, there's something about working with somebody that really well and trust, and 100% has your back, and vice versa. That said, I've said this before on the show, I'm not a huge proponent of partnerships in terms of when you're forming your business at the very beginning of your trajectory. I think partnering on deals is where it's at, like on a deal by deal basis. By all means, partner up. It's a team sport. You gotta bring people in to make these deals happen. In a lot of cases, in most cases, you need to. But as far as your LLC formation and your branding and whatnot, it's not, it can work. Obviously, like Nick and Eric have made it work. Carl and Tate have made it work. But I'm sure you guys have had some rough patches. We've had some rough patches. Like it's just the reality of partnerships, and so it's just something to, I think, carefully consider before date before you marry, kind of thing. Just for what it's worth, listeners, you can.
I think that's definitely good advice. And I'd say Eric and I, for us, I don't know if we would be here if we hadn't partnered. To give kind of, not to be a contrarian to what you're saying, sure, but maybe there's certain people out there who they just don't have that, hey, I'm by myself, I'm gonna conquer the world. They kind of need a tribe around them. I think that Eric and I are both kind of like that. I don't know if we could have built this to this point without having someone else there doing it and sharing in the highs and lows. So I think it's less risky to do it by yourself, for sure, because there's more risk involved when there's other people. But if you're that certain type of person who they need to partner, then it is an option, I guess.
Yeah. And look, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, and there's a lot of ways to do this business. That's the great thing about, Tony Robbins says success leaves clues, and you can really take someone like Nick and Eric, or, so many different guests that have been on this show or on other shows and other podcast hosts, and like do a study out of them. And, what did they do? How did they do it? What kind of language do they speak? What kind of business models do they implement? What kind of strategies are they using for investing and attracting investors and doing all the different things? Like, that's really how to learn this business. And partnering up is, I think, essential on a deal by deal basis, like getting especially these larger scale deals done, large unit counts. Like, I just don't know. I personally don't know anyone that does it 100% on their own. They've either got a stout team that's working for them, or they've got partner or partners that are co-owners essentially of the company. And yeah, it's all good, but like, it's a long game, and it's a relationship game. And like I said, kind of, I'm a proponent of dating before you marry in this world. But that said, you guys make an awesome team, and it's been a real pleasure to get to spend some time with you. You what? Dated for a while?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, and you guys, I mean, one of the cool things you did too was, and I heard you talk about getting more systematic in your processes and whatnot. And you got to do that when you bring on other team members. Like, if your systems and processes aren't, like, the two of you guys can probably hack it, right? Like, the two of you could sit in an office all day for 10 hours or whatever and get it done and kind of know what each other's doing and all that stuff. But when you scale your team up, you got to have the systems and processes. And you mentioned KPIs earlier, Eric, like, those key performance indicators are key to track, because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So, that's so important.
There's almost like there's just kind of even two, just quick points to what you just said. Two components to it is, we could do it. We could sit there every day, and we've had these days before we brought on other people and we were really trying to grow. Where we're here, 12 hours, and it's okay, great. We got a result for this one specific thing, but then there's still a company to run. There's all this other stuff. Nick has 2 little kids now. He doesn't want to be away from his kids for 20 hours a day. I don't want to be away from my wife for 100 days straight. So it's like, there's that component too, where we have to balance life while we're trying to grow. And if you don't bring other people in and kind of not sit back and not know what's going on, but sit back and say, okay, I'm not an expert in this particular thing, but they are. Tell them what to do, and really let them go to work while we focus on what we're good at and keep systematizing, this word we keep saying. Mm-hmm. There's those two kind of components of it. So
yeah. Well said. Well, guys, we're almost out of time here. I'll put you on the spot. Any final words of wisdom for the listeners that, let's just say, maybe want to make a difference in affordable housing? What can they be doing and thinking about and learning?
I think, there's 2 ways you could get involved in affordable housing. You could look for developers that are doing affordable housing investments that you can invest in passively,
mm-hmm.
or
raise capital for like as a capital raiser.
Good
Sorry
point.
to interrupt you. Yeah.
No, actually, that's a really good addition to what I was saying.
Yeah.
So that's one way you could get involved. Or if you have experience, or you're just trying to break into that world of developing it yourself, you can do what we did. Look at your local municipalities around where you live or where you operate. Speak to people in departments involved with housing. They'll likely have an affordable housing section of the government of some form or another. Mm-hmm. Figure out what programs they offer, or someone will be able to point you somewhere to someone funding affordable housing if you keep digging and you keep speaking to enough people related to the field. So you'll be able to, it's all about talking to people, and that's how you'll figure out how you can get involved.
All about talking to people. That's so well said. It's like one of my coaches back in the day said, Tate, life is just a series of conversations. And I love that, because it's like everything that happens in business or any other part of life largely happens in the context of conversations. And, the better you can get at doing that stuff and having powerful conversations, the more powerful you are and the more you can get done. So well said, Nick.
Oh, thank you. I like that too.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks a ton. This has been fantastic. Love getting to know you a little better and hearing all about what you're up to, doing good things in the world for good people. And, always let us know how we can help at Greenlight, my team. We'll be pulling for you.
Yeah, likewise.
Anything
you need from us, let us know.
Sure thing. So guys, again, winterspringcapital.com, Nick Earls and Eric DiNicola. So guys, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tate.
Listeners, thank you for listening to another episode of The Apartment Guys, and we will catch you on the next one. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to The Apartment Guys with Tate Seamer. Tate and friends are grateful to have you as a loyal listener. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe, rate, review, and share with friends on your Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or any other podcast platform. Also, check out Tate's YouTube channel for videos of many of these episodes and more. Until next time, take massive action steps and rock on.